Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Big Money Show. Joining me are David Bahnsen. So we've been talking, David Bahnsen, all week about the hints that he's been dropping. Thursday was perhaps maybe the most, the strongest hint that we might have a deal with China. But the big question is, are we going to get that deal within enough time to stave off some of these price hikes that American consumers could feel?
No, there's already going to be price hikes. And even apart from price hikes, I would argue diminished economic activity. Now, the sooner we get one, the better. But there's already, I'm talking to small business owners every day that say they're not ordering, they're not hiring, they don't know what to do. So we have to get on the other side of the uncertainty, and we're making progress towards that. But we're not there yet. And there's a certain amount of genie already out of bottle.
We've heard from Scott Bessent, Peter Navarro, Howard Lutnick. You've got Greer. Trump is getting involved in some of these negotiations on his own. We also talk about how he gives us a rare glimpse sometimes into how the sausage is made. But then I think selectively sometimes we don't see how certain sausage is made, David. And I'm wondering, this is all a strategy. It's part of how he negotiates his deals and he does things. But when we get used to seeing things and then we don't see things, we really wonder how the progress is going. And I just go back to this original point that with so many cooks in the kitchen, we still don't have a deal on the table. Something worries me about that.
I think that we got a chance to see how the sausage is made the day or 2 days after Liberation Day when Vice President Vance said, every day we're going off of President Trump's gut. That he, day by day, is using his gut to drive deals. Some people think that's a great thing. Some people, I think, markets are unsure what to make of it. But I believe when you say all those different names, some of which are in odds with one another, what Secretary Bessent's looking to do is different than Jameson Greer at USTR. It's different than what Secretary Lutnick has said. I don't think that's just palace intrigue. I think it is competing ideologies. We saw this in the first term, where Kevin Hassett was often at odds with Pete Navarro.
He wrote about it.
He wrote about it in a book that came out after the first term. So President Trump's going to make these decisions. He's going to make them off his gut. And that's hard for someone like me, who's kind of an ideological guy, because I don't think it's a clear ideology. It's off of his own instincts.
But, David, that's how Trump deals with things. He did it I thought, brilliantly in the first term until COVID came around.
Yeah.
Having these parties duke it out amongst themselves, sitting back, letting them do so, and then choosing the best deal he could.
But in the first
term, not only for trade, but also on tax policy.
But in the first term, the people on the good shoulder won. And the people on the bad shoulder lost.
Yeah, but
that's what I'm hoping happens this
up
term.
Until the time because there has been no decision, as you mentioned, yet, and there will be very shortly. There will be a decision made on trade.
Clearly, the Russians have the upper hand right now, and that's only going to continue if this thing continues.
So, David Bahnsen, coming off of that point to you, Trump has kind of signaled, and I think House Republicans, too, have raised questions on the amount of spending that we've offered to Ukraine. We've kind of signaled this is not a limitless support of Ukrainian operations. We've got a lot of questions about where that money is actually going. But to that point, I've read reports about what Russia wants in order to end this war. From their side, they want to have control over all 4 regions of Ukraine. They want to limit the size of the Ukrainian army. They want Ukraine to drop its ambitions for NATO. It kind of sounds like they just expect Ukraine to surrender.
Yeah, it's almost like they believe that you can invade a country and then get whatever you want. And we have to maintain moral clarity. I just think back to my favorite president of my lifetime, Ronald Reagan. There's no way he'd stand for this. Absolutely no way. Now, we can't go commit American troops. There's no political will for it. And we don't like war, and they don't have an easy way for either side to win. But for us to surrender the moral clarity that one side invaded the other side and that we would give them or broker a deal that gives Putin everything he wants. It just can't happen, and I pray it won't.
Right now, 75% of our essential medications are imported, most coming from China or India. And India gets 80% of its drug ingredients from China. Trump administration saying this is a national security issue, and it is hoping the tariffs on Chinese pharmaceuticals could reestablish stockpiles and bring drug manufacturing back home where we can control it. David, is that possible? Can we do that? Bringing stuff back home is a great idea. Everybody loves it. We just went through a pandemic, and we said we got to do more of this.
There's some things we can't bring back home. There's some things that we shouldn't bring back home because they can be done cheaper elsewhere, and I still believe in comparative advantage. Anything of critical infrastructure, national security, I not only want to bring back home, I want to bring back home tomorrow. But this makes me anti-tariff, not pro-tariff. Because what kind of argument is it that this must be done for national security unless you pay us 20%? Then national security doesn't matter. How does getting paid for something dangerous make it less dangerous? It's an incoherent argument. The tariff does not help us. If this is a part of critical infrastructure, safety, national security, the issue of slave labor, I don't want to get paid for slave labor. I don't want us to use slave labor. So let's have moral clarity and economic clarity in our argument.
Well, that is the issue, that slave labor in some cases have resulted in drugs that are bad stuff, and have hurt some people. You guys are younger, the two of you, and don't need to rely on a lot of drugs. But there are other people on this panel that may.
I still worry about it. I worry about it, and I think back to the mid-2000s when China was sending poison pet food over here. We had a cat that died from it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and I think about those ingredients coming from China that are in critical drugs. It's not just a supply chain issue, but it's a safety issue. There are no standards there. So what are the ingredients that they're using? What is the quality? What goes on in the factories? A lot of things to think about. David, I just want to go to your point, and I'm not arguing with you here, but I am going to push back a little and just say, I hear you on the incoherent argument. But that's if you're looking at it in terms of black and white, that a tariff is being imposed and then all of a sudden, you don't necessarily care about national security. If Trump was going into this using tariffs just as that negotiating tool, I still believe that he was, then it's a little bit different, that tariffs get people to the table to talk. Tariffs get you to have conversations that can make things better, even if not 100% better, maybe a little bit better. And
I think you're making a very different argument than the one the administration's made, where tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to get 600.
I'm not making that argument. So definitely not.
So that argument, I think, is in contradiction to the one you're making. If all of this is going to lead to negotiation of different things, then all of it is moot, because we're going to find out in the end. Ultimately, I am a stickler on this national security issue. I don't want any dependency on a communist country of anything of critical infrastructure. Now, on the safety standards they have there, let's be clear, we have huge safety standards here. When it's imported, it doesn't just come off a box and go on our shelves. And stuff can break down, and stuff breaks down domestically, too. But China's either low or high safety standards.
But it
doesn't end there. There's still a safety inspection.
When things are imported into the country, they're not taking them apart. They're not taking pills or food apart and breaking down to make sure that the ingredients are the right formulas.
We're not talking about 0.0001% of even allegations of drugs that have been doing damage to America. We would know because people would be getting sick and dying.
And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if they don't really have standards when it comes to what they're doing, that's a potential. It's certainly a possibility. I mean, I look at products coming across from China, for example, ceramics that you heat up, and I've had health issues, so I'm really sensitive to this. And I just think about it because they're not going to tell you what is in the material.
All of those safety-related issues, Jackie, I'm on your side. I believe you have reasons you think about it. Other consumers have reasons they think about it. My only issue is I just don't need the White House to think about it for me. I believe individuals need to make those decisions.
Jeff, you invoked...
Fair.
I love this line, restoring American seafood competitiveness.
I was coming to you on that.
But this is where
he eats lobster.
Of course, I sure do. This is where the president said his best with deregulation. Yes. When they add this line about unfair trade practices, just take it out, because you don't need to worry about what other people's trade practices are if you don't have these silly regulations, restrictions about daily catch limits, the outdated data. Deregulate and let them flourish on their own. That drives productivity. Deregulation is a path to productivity. We don't need to complain about the trade arrangements with other countries when we are handcuffing our own people. Take the handcuffs off with our own regulation, and we will win.
That.
And some of these projects have been very controversial, David. There have been studies done that potentially the building of the wind farms cause vibration underground that causes some of these whales. You're laughing. I see a smile on your face to wash up on shore. What do you think?
Well, I'm not laughing about those things happening. I think that what the secretary is doing, Doug Burgum, by the way, is one of the bright spots of this cabinet, in my opinion. He's a very intelligent man. He's very judicious, sober-minded. And I think they want to look at the full effects. And you talked about complexity, Jeff. I think they want to see what the whole picture is, then make an assessment. I believe the vast majority of our regulatory apparatus came to be because companies and businesses lobbied Congress to help build an impediment to other businesses, to competitors. Regulation is a subsidy. It helps one business, usually big and entrenched, that have market share already, and hurts young up-and-comers, which does what? It hurts innovation. Burgum gets this. Now, we were talking about a different category of things here. These are federal assets, potentially. They have a stake in this. But I have total confidence in him to look at it judiciously, and that's what I kind of want to see through all of these processes.
David Bahnsen, I wonder about your thoughts about that. Do you think that the Democrats, kind of playing to, as David Webb said, the Latino vote, is that going to be effective? Because when we're looking at polling about what President Trump is doing with respect to immigration, most people, it seems, according to Fox News polling, support his efforts to deport illegal immigrants into this country. 63% favor deporting all illegal immigrants in the United States back to their countries.
Oh, I think this is overwhelmingly a popular issue around anything related to border immigration, especially those accused of committing crimes. But I don't think that they're doing this to protect the Hispanic vote.
I think not protect, keep.
I think
there's a difference.
They're going to lose the Latino vote, and I think they do it for rich white women in East Hampton. That's who feels good about this.
You know where else?
It's a virtue signaling vote.
It is very true, a virtue signaling, but here's another thing. Who are they playing to? Separate high propensity voters from low propensity voters.
Yeah.
And you're right. They shift because they want to sell it. The whole goal here is to keep your power, keep your voting blocks in line. So they're not addressing the issues in those communities. They're not even addressing the issues for white, educated, college graduate women, because what are they facing? High debt, high college debt, all the other things that come with it, especially those with higher degrees or dual degrees. So they don't care. It's really about power and voting blocks.
But the Trump administration, seems to me, could diffuse this. Bring the guy back. Say, okay, we think he's a gang member, deport him to some other country beside El Salvador, because there was an order that he not be deported to El Salvador, and say, yeah, we made a mistake on this one. We're doing a big thing here. People can understand you sometimes make a mistake. Admit your mistake. Move on. Takes the thing away.
They did start off admitting they made a mistake. The thing is now the left went the wrong way with this, and the Trump administration realizes they have public support, so they're now doubling down. They did make a mistake, and they admitted it at first. But now they're going the other way because of
the guy
public
got
support.
canned who admitted it, but that's fine.
David Bahnsen, what Guy Fieri is actually saying is that he's not going to pass along any piece of his inheritance unless his kids get not 1, but 2 degrees.
Right. So all they have to do is show up. They just have to show up for class for a few years in between frat parties, and then they get the inheritance.
That's what it sounds like.
Look, it's his family, and he has a right to do what is best for him and his children. For me, I'm all for very wealthy people not wanting to just give trust fund kids into the world. I'm against that idea of kids that don't have to learn and grow and perform and produce in the economy. But connecting it to college degrees is my problem. Plenty of people can produce and be successful in this society without a 1 degree, let alone 2. So to me, I just think it's skewed in terms of what he's trying to accomplish. I hate to tout my own book here, but that is what my book was about. Full-time work and the meaning of life. This is the reason God made us, to work and be productive. I just don't think it's connected to a college degree.
I've just seen
I know bad rich kids, and I know good
and they're
rich,
good ones.
And I know good rich kids. But what did they have? They had a better value system from their parents and a definition of success that wasn't tied to a specific 2 college degrees and you're successful. That doesn't guarantee you success. Doesn't deny it, but it doesn't guarantee it.
Never known anyone who got a value system from a graduate degree or an undergrad degree.
Yeah.
I have known plenty of people whose value system was undermined by a college degree.
David Bahnsen, what do you think of Netflix?
Well, look, I think that anytime a company has $27 billion of earnings but only $6 billion of free cash flow, there's a question that I want to ask as an investor. So we're big free cash flow investors at my firm. Why is there $21 billion that is not really earnings? What is it going to do? They have to continue making a lot of content. And the question is, how high can subscribers pay? What is the monthly that people will go to? They talk about international expansion. I'm skeptical that opportunity is there. At a $420 billion market cap, to get to $1 trillion, you're talking about growing roughly 10% a year. That would be right in line with S&P, but very high risk. it's not the type of thing I would touch. And it's already trading at 45 times earnings.
Ooh, that's the thing, in this environment.
So a lot of the good news and expectations are already very priced in.
Yeah.
These businesses come and go. I am shaped by my experience. I started at CNN a long time ago, and the company grew, and it became Turner Broadcasting, then it became Turner Time Warner, then it merged again with AOL, which was the greatest company you ever see, and the stock went from 110 to 10. These businesses don't have a long shelf life, in my view, and so I'll watch Netflix.
And that's when content was a lot cheaper to make than it is now.
True, very true.